Okay, so guys, let's start this class. This demo session. Give me a minute. Is my screen visible? Can anyone confirm me, or can anyone confirm if I'm audible? We have Kaushik, we have Shalendra, we have Shushma. So, guys, anyone can confirm if I'm audible? We
You
have
are
Santosh.
audible, but the screen is not visible.
Okay, so screen is not visible. Okay, give me a minute. Let me check. Okay, where is that? Just give me a minute. I'm just checking. Why I do not have the option to share my screen? Where is that? That. Okay, now I get this. My screen. Okay, is it visible now? Can anyone confirm?
Yes.
Mm, Yes,
Okay.
you can see.
Thanks, Kaushik, for confirmation and challenge. So let me introduce myself, guys, first, and then we'll discuss that. Okay, so my name is Manish. My friends usually call me Manny. I have 14 years, or in fact, I can say more than 14 years of experience, and I have worked with multiple companies like HCL, IBM, Fujitsu as a infrastructure specialist, consultant, and system administrator and cloud administrator. Now I'm into the trainings, and I'm providing training to multiple professionals based on the batch and based on the corporate contracts. So mostly I train people on cloud infrastructure like Azure Cloud, DevOps, Terraform, and Azure Kubernetes and Terraform as well. So these are the major technologies on which I train people. I have conducted many workshops and webinars as well, and I am certified in most multiple cloud ops multiple Azure cloud certifications like Microsoft Azure Administrator, Azure Infrastructure Solution Expert, DevOps, and Terraform as well. Okay, so few more certifications I'm on the way to complete, but since they have not done, so I have not mentioned it here. So that's basically the snapshot of my technical expertise as a trainer or as a professional. So this is all about my profile I'm going to teach. So in this demo session or in this training, basically we are going to learn about Azure DevOps. So first I'm going to explain you about the content what we are going to learn during the training, and then we will discuss about the basics of the DevOps also, so that we can get some better idea. Okay, so let me take this out, and let's go to content. So here I'm going to talk about the content which we are going to cover during our training, and this training is basically focused on Azure DevOps. Okay, so we our focus in this training is to teach all of the options, related to the Azure DevOps, and the basic requirement. before this training is to have a understanding of the Azure cloud, at least. Okay, even if you do not have the understanding and experience on the Azure cloud, at least any other cloud you should be having an understanding and knowledge, because cloud infrastructure understanding and knowledge is really important, especially when you are talking about the DevOps. So in this training, we are not going to talk about the open source DevOps like Jenkins, the OpenShift, and Maven. There are a lot of open source DevOps tools are there. So we are not going to talk about those open source, because this training is designed teach you the Azure DevOps, which is mostly used and widely used in the enterprise environment. So any organization which works in Microsoft oriented technologies, they are adopting this Azure DevOps very frequently. And Azure DevOps basically is one stop, or basically one window where we get all kind of DevOps tools to work on the DevOps in integration. So we'll discuss that part later, like how DevOps work and anyways. So let's go with the content, like what we are going to cover. Since as I told you, like even if you are not very much familiar with the Azure, or you do not need a very extensive experience in Azure, we are going to cover some Azure part, Azure cloud, not just the DevOps, but before the skills which we need before to go for the Azure DevOps. So in the content, or in the module one, first we are going to talk about the Azure fundamental concepts, like how the Azure, how we are going to give me a minute. Okay, yeah. So how we are going to understand, like what is Azure Cloud, like what is the option of how we can create a free tier account, and then what are the data center architecture of the Azure Cloud, because that understanding is important to visualize. Because in cloud, when we talk about, there are a number of things which is not especially the hardware part is not accessible for us, so we do not have option to look into the hardware part. So it is important to understand and visualize what is going on behind the Azure data center. So we'll talk about that Azure region and availability. So we will discuss that part in the module one. In module two, we will go through the networking concept, and the networking concept is important. This basically teaches us like how the things are connected in the enterprise environment. So if you are working in any organization, you must have already aware of these basics of the networking. So you do not need to be a very good in networking, but yes, the topics which I have mentioned on your screen, these things needs to be you guys must have a clear understanding on these topics, like virtual network, subnet, what is the public IP address, the network security group, VNet peering. So these are the basic network concepts which we need to learn before we go to the DevOps section. So we'll cover that part in this module. In module third, we are going to talk about the storage accounts. So storage is again playing a very important role in a cloud infrastructure. So when you are going to work in a cloud infrastructure, so storage is again a very important piece of the infrastructure. So in this training, we are also going to learn about the storage accounts, and especially all these things about the Azure, how the storage is being managed in Azure, how we can securely access the storage, how we can provide the high availability and redundancy. Because as a DevOps administrator, from you, the expectation is also to know about these basic infrastructure solutions. So we'll talk about the storage account in module 3. Then in module 4, we are going to talk about virtual machines. So virtual machines are, one of the key important piece of infrastructure which we all need to learn and we all need to understand. And this is one of the common piece of infrastructure across all the clouds. So you are going to have a virtual machine in AWS, you are going to have a virtual machine in Google Cloud, Azure Cloud. No matter which cloud you are working on, you are going to have a virtual machine everywhere. Okay, so we are going to learn what is virtual machine and how we can create virtual machine, what are the different options we get while we create virtual machines, whether it is a Windows virtual machine or Linux virtual machine, what are the options to host the website. And this part especially, I'm talking about this website hosting on Azure VM and website hosting on Azure VM Windows and Linux. This is, I would say, the first step of our Azure virtual sorry Azure DevOps, because this is where we are doing it manually. Things we are going to host it, the website hosting on a virtual machine. At this stage, we are going to do it manually, but later when we will move to the training, we are going to do the same thing by using the DevOps concept. But the basic understanding or basic introduction, we are going to get it from here itself. Then after the virtual machine, we are going to talk about the Azure App Service. Azure App Service is a PaaS solution, which is a platform as a service solution, and it is one of the widely used infrastructure. Even if it is coming to the DevOps, we are going to use this Azure App Service a lot. So Azure App Service is basically, if I go back to this virtual machine and comparing to this Azure App Service. So in virtual machine, we are going to have more control in terms of like operating system. So let's say if you have created a virtual machine, a Windows virtual machine. So in cloud also, it is your responsibility to maintain your own Windows machine. So for example, you have to do the patching for that Windows machine. You have to configure your virtual machine based on your requirement. While coming to the Azure App Service, this is also a version of a advanced version of a virtual machine, but here we are not maintaining the operating system. If in a virtual machine, let's say you have installed a Windows 2016 server, and tomorrow let's say Microsoft has announced like I'm going to discontinue Windows 2016 server, then you have to upgrade your own machine. But when it comes to the Azure App Service, it is a more advanced version of the virtual machine. We will discuss about it later in detail a lot. So I'm just giving you the basic understanding. Azure App Service is an advanced version of the virtual machine where we do not need to maintain the operating system of our virtual machine. It is also a virtual machine, but with some additional benefits and additional features. What are all those benefits? What are all those features? We will discuss when we are going to this module. So module 4 and 5 is all about, pretty much going to be same, but yes, we will discuss how it differs in a cloud. Then we are going to talk about the ARM template. So infrastructure as code. So this is the beginning of our, the DevOps section. No matter which DevOps environment are you going to work in nowadays, in DevOps environment, you must have understanding how are you going to deploy your infrastructure with a template or ARM template or infrastructure as code, as I mentioned here in the screen as well. So nowadays, I'm sure you must have some or basic understanding of the Azure, not just Azure cloud, any cloud. So nowadays, if I have to create a virtual machine, so I will simply, if I'm Azure guy or if I'm an AWS guy or if I'm a Google Cloud guy, then I will go to some sort of portal, a web page where I can choose. Okay, I want this virtual machines to be created. I want this storage to be created. But when it comes to the ARM template, so we are going to create the virtual machine with the help of template. We are going to write some code, not the programming language code I'm talking about. This is a different code I'm talking about. So we are going to write some sort of template. We are going to understand like how to create any resource in Azure cloud by using the ARM template. And that is also called infrastructure as code. The same way in the infrastructure as code, we have another tool. The same thing which we are going to achieve from the ARM, we are also doing to use the Terraform. Terraform is again a very famous and widely used tool across all the clouds, which is going to help us to set up the infrastructure. So I don't want to create anything by manual by my own hands, and I don't want to use that. So that is why I need to use these tools. So in DevOps, the importance of these two tools, especially in the Azure DevOps, are very good, high. In DevOps pipeline, we are going to create resources based either from Terraform or from ARM template. The basic difference between the ARM and the Terraform is that ARM template, which is Azure Resource Manager, ARM stands for Azure Resource Manager. So ARM template is dedicated, or I would say it is like a exclusive tool, not the exclusive tool, but it is a tool given by the Azure, which means if you're writing, if you're creating your infrastructure by using the ARM template. So ARM template is going to work inside the Azure cloud itself, while Terraform is independent, which means if you know the Terraform, you can deploy the resources in AWS, you can deploy the resources in Google Cloud, you can deploy the resources in Oracle Cloud, you can deploy the resources in Azure Cloud. So Terraform is an independent tool or independent, infrastructure as a code language, which we can use to create resources in any cloud platform. While the ARM is specific to the Microsoft Azure cloud itself. So that's the basic difference. And later, when we will discuss, these two modules, we will see, many similarities as well. But again, as I told you, like Terraform is platform independent. It does not, if you know the Terraform, you can create your resources in any cloud. If you know the ARM, you are very much good and familiar with the Microsoft Azure cloud. Okay, after that, here we are going to start actual DevOps portal from here. I mean, before that, whatever before all the 8 modules we have covered. I'm sorry, all the 7 modules I would say, numbering just gone wrong. Anyways, so all the modules which we have discussed, whether we are talking about the virtual machine, whether we are talking about the Azure App Service, whether we are talking about the storage account, the networking concept, all these are the building blocks. These concepts are basically the building blocks to learn DevOps. Because in many trainings, when you will go and start talking about the DevOps, people will simply start giving you training over the DevOps concepts, and then it is going to be a very difficult for us, because DevOps is simply not for the fresher. I'm honestly telling you guys, DevOps is not for the people who are quite freshers, not in freshers, but who are not, very much good in, not good, who have not done any kind of cloud, knowledge. So that is why I have, designed this training in a way, like first we will capture, first we will learn all the required or basics, building blocks before getting into the actual DevOps environment. Because when we will go to the DevOps environment, we cannot ask what is what is virtual machine. We cannot say how one virtual machine is going to communicate with another virtual machine. We cannot say like where what is Azure App Service, how I'm going to deploy my website. So these questions you should learn before you go to the DevOps, because DevOps is not going to do all these things. DevOps is a cycle which it's a framework which we need to understand. So we'll come to that part later, as of now. So this is where we are actually will start our actual DevOps, the portal, the Azure DevOps portal. We'll go through the DevOps portal introduction and everything, organization and project and a team and permission. Then we are going to talk about the important components inside the Azure DevOps. Inside the Azure DevOps, the first component is the Azure board. So Azure board is nothing. It's pretty much very plain and simple. So if you are little bit of familiar with the software development lifecycle, even if you are not, it does not matter, because in the introduction section we are going to cover that topic. So this you must have heard about different software development lifecycle like Scrum, CMMI, Agile methodology. So if you are from the development background, you must have heard about all these words. Even if you are not from the development background, let's say you are from the infrastructure administration or system administration or cloud administration background, you are we are going to understand about all these models, but yeah, not in detail, because that is not required. As a DevOps admin, you do not have to go into the detail in if you out of curiosity and out of your knowledge, for the sake of your own knowledge. If you would like to go, it's good. But we are going to understand the details, like what is agile, what is CMMI, and what is scrum, and how these things actually work. So these are not the technology, these are just the concepts behind the software development life cycle. When any software is going to be developed, then what are the approaches we should take? This talks about that. And in your organization as a DevOps admin, you have to create a board, a dashboard, a planning board. Nothing is so board is basically a blank paper or a blank board where you are going to define your working items. So let's say if you are choosing the agile work item. So if I am going to take approach of the agile, then what are the options I need to consider for my software development? So that those are the things we are going to cover in this module. Next, which we need to talk about, is the remote repository and GitHub and Azure repo. So these three are the repository or the version control system we are going to understand. So this basically talks about, let's say, the developers. There is a team of developer in every organization, and those developers have developed their code. So let's say the organization has given them, okay, as a organization, I have given the team of my developers task to develop an application. For example, application like Paytm. So Paytm is just a payment, receiving and sending application. So I'm going to I want my developers to develop an application which will help me to receive the payment as well as send the payment. So of course, developers are going to work on their machine. Developers are going to work, on the code, and they will write the source code of that application. Source code is basically a code which is written in a programming language. So for example, Python, C Sharp, C++, C, Java, we have PHP, we have multiple programming languages are available. So we are not going to read all the languages. We are going to start from the once the development is done, because as a DevOps administrator, your job is not to write the programming language code. Your job starts once the code is completed, once the code is written. Your job is to maintain that code, and to maintain that code, you need to learn this version control system, which is Git, GitHub, and Azure repo. So when we will come to this section, we will discuss what is the difference between Git, GitHub, and Azure repo, and why we should not get confused with each other. I mean, with these three, Git, GitHub, and Azure repo. We'll discuss about that part also. So this section, it's simply going to deals, once the code is written, the source code is written, how are we going to maintain our source code? The multiple versions of our source code. This is what we are going to learn in this module. We'll come to this next point, which is talking about the CI/CD. You guys have must have heard about the CI/CD concept, like continuous integration. So CI is basically, once I have my source code, I know how to maintain my source code. Then I'm going to start building my continuous integration or the build pipeline. So build pipeline is actually nothing. Let's say I have writing, I'm a developer and I have written a code in Python. So my Python is a source code, I have written it. So if I have written a application, for example, Paytm. So I have developed an application which is called Paytm, and for that Paytm, I have, for example, 500 pages of my Python code. Just an example I'm sharing with you. Okay. So that 500 pages of Python code is my source code. So I cannot keep that, or I cannot, let's say, if I would like my Python, or sorry, my Paytm app, which I have developed in 500 pages of Python, I would like to I would like my friend to use my application. So am I going to give him like 500 page of source code? Okay, my friend, you take my source code here. This is what how I have written, and you can execute your application. No, I'm not going to do that. Nobody does that. Okay. So what I need to do, I need to figure out a mechanism, which means I need to convert my source code into a executable format. So I will convert my source code into an exe file or into a application. For example, in your mobile also, for an Android mobile, you will download the APK files. So APK is again an executable form of application. .exe on your laptop, you must have installed many applications which starts with ends with .exe, .msi. So converting my source code, whatever the source code I have written in a plain raw programming language, into a executable form of the application. That process is basically called the continuous integration and build pipeline. So that process, I mean, how to do that, we are going to learn about in this module. Once my code is completed, once my code is completed, and then after the completion of my code, I converted my code into a executable format. So code is done. So first part is writing of the code. Second part is the conversion of the code or the programming language into an executable format. Now it is time to deploy that executable form into some sort of infrastructure. So for example, if I give you an example, you must have all installed the VLC media player, or maybe you have MS Office on your laptop. So let's say if somebody has written a code for the Microsoft Office or VLC media player, and then after that somebody has converted that code into the executable format. So even if I convert the executable format, then you are going to need an infrastructure where you can install that. So you need a laptop, you need a mobile. So even if I can take the VLC media player example, or the Instagram, Facebook, all these are the applications. Somebody has written the code in the behind, then somebody converted those codes into the executable format. Now, if I can say you want go and install the Instagram, so what do you need? Either you need a mobile or a tab or a laptop, right? You need at least these different kind of infrastructure. So this is called infrastructure, which means after conversion of my source code into the executable format, I need a machine, I need a device, I need a server, I need any infrastructure where I'm going to execute that code. Then only I'm going to able to test that. So even if somebody has developed the Instagram or the Facebook or the WhatsApp, and then there is no mobile in the world, then there is no laptop in the world, then how those applications are going to check or to be used? So that is why we need infrastructure. So here we comes when we are going to take my executable code and putting it into the executable code into some sort of infrastructure. So if you can see, Azure App Service is one of the important infrastructure in our Azure cloud, which we are going to cover that. So publishing my application on an infrastructure is all about continuous delivery or release pipeline. So we will talk about it here also in this module. Then in last or at last we are going to see, because before this you have seen I have mentioned Azure pipeline, which is called build pipeline, and then release pipeline. So we will see these two process in a different setup, different stages. Like first we will only work on the build pipeline, then we will only work on a release pipeline. But later, once we will understand that concept, both the concepts separately, then we need to know how we can use both the concepts together. Okay, so inside this YAML pipeline, I'm going to explain you like how we are going to build my solution and then implement or deploy my solution together. So that is what, and this is the this is how actually the DevOps is being run in an enterprise environment. In enterprise environment, if you will go, you might not find the build pipeline and release pipeline separately, but you may find the common pipeline for both build and deploy. So we will understand the build and deploy both pipeline, how to use together. Okay, and then basically we are going to complete our course, which is called Azure DevOps. So all these contents we are going to discuss in terms of Azure DevOps only. As mentioned, once again, we are not going to touch any open source application like Jenkins or any monitoring application or any testing app. We are not going to touch those things, because those are different sort of tools. Our focus is to learn the DevOps journey from the Azure cloud and the Azure DevOps tools. So that's about the content. So till this point, if anything anybody would like to discuss, I'm ready to discuss, guys. Okay, so if we do not have anything to discuss, then Let me open a whiteboard for you and give you a basic understanding how the DevOps work. Okay, and then we can see. So if I say, so that's my whiteboard, which I'm, which I'll be using to explain different concepts. Okay, so let's understand the format, or I would not say the format, the life cycle. Okay, so let's say there is an organization. Okay, and in that organization, somebody is creating, for example, Instagram is a one of the application we use a lot. So let's talk about the Instagram application. Okay, let's say somebody is going to there is an organization where I'm working, and in that organization we have multiple teams, and the organization has decided like we are going to develop a Instagram application. So application name is Instagram. Fine. Okay, so what is the first step to talk about the Instagram? So let's say the decision is making like, okay, we are going to go for the Instagram. So what is the first step in any organization to develop any application? The first step is the business discussion. Business discussion and the decision making. This is the first step in any organization you will go. As soon as it has been decided, like we are going to, start any kind of project, which is called, for example, Instagram app development. So that's just a project. Name of the project is Instagram app development. So first thing, any organization you will go, you will have a find that business discussion is going to happen. It's not like business without having a business discussion you are going to do anything in any organization. And what is the business discussion? Okay, if I'm going to discuss about what are the features I'm going to include in the Instagram app, what are the options I have. So for example, in my Instagram, I am going to give the people option like, okay, they can post their photos, they can post their videos, they can post their audios, multiple features are there. Okay, so I'm going to mention all the basic features or all the initial features which I want in my application, whatever I needed. Okay, so this will basically gives us a pretty much idea for the developers like, okay, these are the things we need to work. Once the business discussion completed, then we are going to have a team of developers. We have developers. So I start my work like team developer. So they are going to start working on the coding part, the source code part. So for example, there is a development, one developer who is working on photos. Okay. There is another developer who is going to work on videos. Okay, this is just a feature. Okay, then we may have another developer who is going to work on, you know, profile, whatever it is. Okay, these are the multiple features I am expecting in my application. So they are writing the codes. So basically, these are doing nothing. The team of developers are developing my source code. So collectively, I can call it them as a source code. And in the source code, I can have multiple languages based on my requirement, okay, or based on my decision. I can have like Python, Java, C Sharp, C++, or maybe I can have mix of any two languages. Okay, PHP, ASP.NET. So there are multiple languages I'm going to use as a source code to write my source code. These are just the plain programming languages. So this part is going to cover by the team of developer. As a DevOps admin, you are not supposed to make any. If you know the language, it's more than enough. It is absolutely an advantage for you. But even if you don't know, it is not something like you should be worried about, because this development is something which is going to happen in a different department of you, which is called the development team or development department in your organization. So this part is something they are going to do that. As a DevOps admin, or the DevOps journey starts after that. So as a DevOps journey, once all these source code are compiled, okay, developer one, and let's do one thing. Mention is like developer one is working on my photos, okay, and developer two is working on my videos, or let's say developer three is working on my profile. Okay, whatever the features I have decided in the business discussion, it come here and it has been started working in the team. A developers team has started working on that. Fine. And collectively, all these developments, the code of all the code developed by all these developers, I am collectively calling it as my source code. Now, once the source code is ready, so there maybe the team of developers has said, okay, sir, we are ready with the first version, whatever it is. Now, what they will do, they will push the code into one common repository, and that is so repository. That repository is basically called in our we are going to use in this tool, which is Git. This is where we are going to learn about Git, GitHub, and Azure. So this is the tool which we are going to learn about. So they will develop all the source code, and this source code, not this individual developers, this source code is going to be pushed into this particular repository, which means collectively I captured all the coding part, all the source code, and put it into my files. So my source code has come here. Okay. So now, once the source code is captured, okay, the next step or the next phase or the next option or action which we need to is to convert this source code into a executable format. So I'm going to build the solution, and that process is, in terms of DevOps terminology, that process is called build solution. So I'm going to do the build part. Build means converting your source code into executable format. Build. I'm going to follow the build process here, and then I'm going to use the tool which I'm going to use is called Azure Pipeline. Build here. We are going to talk about that build pipeline here. So build is the process name or the stage name. Once my source code is ready, then I'm going to start, building the solution. And the Azure build pipeline is basically going to generate or process executable form of source code. So the output of my build process, whatever the process I'm going to continue here, okay, in this stage, I'm going to get, this is my executable form of source code, which means I have started developing Instagram. I have included these three features, put it my source code here. From this stage, I have done the build process. And then in the build process, I'm going to get the executable form of source code, which means executable form of my Instagram. Now I need to push, deploy that Instagram into a environment, into an infrastructure. So what I'm going to do here, that is my target infrastructure. So here I'm talking about, let's say as of now, I'm just giving it a name as Instagram server. That's my Instagram server. So that's my target environment. After this stage, what I'm going to do here is the next stage is going to, I'm creating another pipeline. Okay, and that pipeline is called Azure pipeline, and that pipeline is called release pipeline. So we are going to learn about the release pipeline and this stage. And this stage is called the deployment. So this deployment pipeline, in this deployment pipeline, we'll talk about the Azure pipeline. And in this Azure pipeline, this source code, this is the source code here, is going to act as my input. So whatever the, just give me a minute, guys. Okay, just give me. Okay, sorry guys, I'm back. Okay, so here, whatever the source code, I mean, whatever the output of my conversion of my source code which I have generated, I'm going to use it as an input for my Azure pipeline, and I'm also going to define where I would like to use target environment, where I would like to use to deploy my source code. Sorry, the executable folder. So the target environments are going to be VM, Azure App Service, AKS. It could be Docker. These are the multiple infrastructures we have as a target environment. So we are going to develop this release pipeline, and let's say I have chosen as a VM or the Azure App Service, whatever it is. Okay, so I'm just going to mention as a VM. Okay, then this pipeline will go ahead and deploy my code into the target environment which I have selected. So that's the pipeline, or that's so the whole process from pushing the code into the repository, building it, releasing it, or deploying it to the target environment. All this process is basically called the DevOps journey or the DevOps cycle, nothing else. Okay, so we are going to learn this approach. We are not, absolutely we are not the developers, but we will use some example source code for our labs. But actual journey starts from here, here, and then target environment. And once my application, Instagram application, is deployed into my Instagram server, okay, the application is deployed, Instagram, sorry, app here. Then what is going to happen? This Instagram app is the server version of the application. Is the server version of app. It means I installed the Instagram on the server. Now there is a client version of the app also. So client version of app is basically the our mobile system. So let's say if I have my mobile, multiple mobiles I have. So these are my mobile. So mobile devices or user, whatever you can call it. It could be mobile, okay. It could be tab. These are just the client device, because these are going to receive the application, and let's say laptop. So these are my client devices. So what I need to do, I need to install the Instagram app and the client version of app. So I am going to install the client version of app here. Okay, so these client version of apps are basically going to have a communication, or I would say two-way communication with this server. So let's say from mobile, I posted one application, it will go and store here. I posted one video, it will go and store here. I posted anything from my laptop, it will go and store here. That is why, let's say if in future if this mobile will go down, this laptop will go down, or this laptop will go down, and I log in into another mobile and just I enter my ID and password, then I'll be able to open the same sort of all my photos will be there, all my videos will be there, everything is going to be there, okay, in my DevOps, because here the DevOps is not coming into the picture. The DevOps ends here itself. So if I say the DevOps work is ends here. The job of the DevOps is only to deploy the application, the server version of the application on the infrastructure. That's it. After that, the client and the server. This will, they will communicate with each other. They will discuss with and talk to each other. So we are going to understand this pipeline or these phases. Of course, we are going to discuss about the repository build, development, and how to deploy the server. But the client is something we are not going to discuss about that client, because this is something we don't need to. So in your organization also, when you are working as a DevOps administrator, or you in a company you are going to work as a DevOps administrator, the company expects you to know repository, how to maintain the multiple version of the source code, and how to push the source code from the developers to the. Although this pushing the source code into the repository is a job of the developers, but still, as a DevOps admin, if you also know the process, it is an additional advantage to you. Once the source code is given to you, how are you going to convert your source code into the executable form of the application? And once the executable form of application is prepared, then how are you going to create a pipeline, and how are you going to? So now the question first, okay, I said it all these things at one time. Fine, done. Then what is the benefit of DevOps? Why can't I, go, because these are the individual stages. So why I need to a DevOps? So why we need a DevOps? The requirement here is, let's say as of now in my application, I have three options: photos, videos, and profiles. Okay. Tomorrow, let me make this arrangement. Tomorrow, I created another version of my application. Okay. Let's say I created another version of my application. The team of developers, okay, they have created another version of their application. So Instagram app version 1, or version 2. Okay, V2, we are simplifying it as a V2. Here I'm sorry, I'm going to use this. So in the version 1, okay, so I'll say version 2 is a copy of version 1. That's my version 1. And here I have already the option of photos, videos, and profile. So that's my version 1. So version 1 is going to be there. All the features in the version 1, it is going to be there. Plus, in version 2, I am adding another feature, and that feature, for example, is called audio. I have added a audio also. Okay, sorry guys. So let's say I decided the another feature which is called audio. So once you add a new feature, okay, what you are going to do again, and now my source code will become like this. This is my new version of the source code, because I have added source code. That's my new version of the source code. So what I need to do, I need to say, okay, the pipeline is already created. Now I quickly want my users, all these client users, as of now in the version 1, they are getting three options: photos, videos, and profile. All these are getting their photos, videos, and profile. Now I had developed the audio option, and now I need to push or implement this new feature to all these existing users or all this here. I simply need to do one thing because I have already created my DevOps pipeline. So what simply need to do that I need to push this source code from here to here. The moment I'll push my source code and another piece of the source code, okay, I can make it like this also. So it's a source code. It's a source code version 1. Okay. Then I simply going to push here the source code version. Source code version. So that's my source code version 1 here. And then I simply push my source code version 2. I developed a new feature. I put my source code version 2. Now the benefit of DevOps life cycle is that you only need to do this thing. You develop your source code. Your developer do not need to worry about how it is going to be published, how it is going to be deployed. They need to simply create their source code, and they need to push this new source code into the repository. From there, all these things, all these deployments are going to happen automatically. Automatically, the new build code is going to be created by using the build pipeline. Automatically, the new build code is going to be created by using the release pipeline, and it will automatically deploy the new version of my application here as well. Instagram app. So this is automatically going to deploy. So this basically saves a lot of time. So as soon as my development is done, as soon as I have done my new development or the new features, I can simply push the source code. I do not have to worry about anything setting up again. All these things, or I do not need to do anything. I simply work on my source code, and that is where the DevOps team comes in the picture. DevOps administrator, you simply need to tell Mr. Your developers like, boss, if you are done with your source code, just let me know. Either you can push or I can give you how to push. Once they are going to push, everything, all the process is going to be executed automatically, and users are quickly getting the Instagram, the new features like audio as well. And this is how it does in the real world as well. So you must have observed, if you are a technical, if you're using the WhatsApp, then you must have seen right now in WhatsApp we are getting an option of Meta AI. If not, then you can go and check that. So Meta AI is a new feature. So what do you think? Is that WhatsApp? You do not have to upgrade your WhatsApp. You do not have to do anything. Only you are simply getting a new feature directly in your client application, and this is how they are doing it. They have made changes at their end, and to make the changes, they have created a pipeline, and we are simply following this pipeline. And after that, it will automatically get populated in your client application, because this is where the actual requirement is. I mean, this is something as an admin you have to take care of this, but as a business, they are only worried about this part. Business is not much worried about this part because this is a job of the administrator or the IT team or the development team. Business says, okay, I gave you to a task to develop an Instagram application. Did you guys develop? Yes, develop. Then let me check. Open my mobile, install my Instagram application, and let me see if it is going to work or not. So this is how the entire DevOps, or I would say the software development lifecycle works. And this is what we are going to learn in our training as well. We are not going to learn this how to write the source code. Let me make it very clear. We are not going to learn any programming language, because that is not the job of a DevOps admin. Our journey, of course, first we are going to talk about the target environment, because this is the prerequisite we need to first understand. Then we'll start with the repository build and the deployment, and then we'll see if, to access all these applications from the client environment as well. So that's all about the DevOps cycle, guys. So anybody has any points, any query to discuss, or any question?
So in
Will
this
you be
part
sending the
training,
Sorry,
in this training,
what?
you are going to cover GitHub, Git.
Yes, we are going to cover. Let me go back to my content. Maybe you have joined late. Uh, Here, I'm going to, yes, cover this GitHub and Azure. We are going to cover that.
Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Somebody else was asking something. I
will you be
missed.
sending the this recording? I missed the starting
Yeah,
part.
I think recording you can get it from Visualpath. So I think you will getting the message like drop your email ID and contact number for the further details. So I think they
Okay.
can send you the recording.
All right. Thank you.
Hi, Kaushik here.
Yeah, hi Kaushik.
So, yeah, hi. So I was just, I mean, while you were explaining the entire flow, how the DevOps works, so I
Uh-huh.
came across some terms like AKS and all those stuff. So are
Ah,
those also part of this training?
no, they why they because those are a dedicated infrastructure. If I talk about this, you're talking about the AKS and all, right? So
AKS,
our
Docker,
focus.
yeah.
Yeah, so we are going to learn about VM and Azure App Service because our training focus is to learn the entire flow. We cannot use AKS and Docker because if I start teaching you AKS is in itself a 2 months of course at least. So if
Okay.
we cannot go and teach, learn AKS in this training because or Docker also is a very long course. So AKS and Docker is a very long course. So we need to learn about in our separate training. Honestly telling you, otherwise, by just explaining you like what is AKS and what is Docker, it does not make any sense to anyone. We are going to use virtual machine and Azure App Service as a target environment to deploy my server. But yes, AKS and Docker is also going to, it can be used to deploy the application. So as I say, my application as of now is deployed on a virtual machine. It can be same thing. I can use the Azure App Service, I can use the AKS, or I can use the Docker also. But AKS and Docker is a separate course because they have a different architecture. So we need to learn in a
Okay.
different way, honestly.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Okay, so any more topic, guys? Anything which we would like to discuss? Okay, then no, then I believe I'm assuming we are good at this point. So we are just wrapping up this call for today, and based on your interaction with the visual path, we'll see. I mean, how to start the how to continue on this course. I hope I explained all the training, content as well as the flow of the training, like what we are going to follow throughout the training, what are the topics we are going to learn. So I hope it makes clear to you. If anyone has any doubt during of that, of course you can submit your question to the visual path, and they can get back to me. I'll try to answer that. Okay. If we do not have anything to discuss, then I think we are good to wrap up the call for today. And see you guys. Expecting to see all of you for the training. So let's see. Okay. Thanks
Yep.
all
Thanks.
for joining. Thank you. Have a nice day.